place, because I was always a primary breadwinner. I was, you know, out there. I was a business person, and I had finally reached a point with someone where I didn't have to do that anymore. I could stay home.
I want to stop you because that's such a, you know, Oprah says she has an aha moment. This is an aha moment because not only can I relate to this professionally, but personally in my own relationships. I find that when people do that, especially a man, that takes away all those years that you did that for yourself. And let's face it, who really doesn't want to be completely taken care of? I mean, even Dorothy always wants to go home, right? In The Wizard of Oz, everybody wants to go home, you know, so you have somebody who's charming, attractive, and wants to do everything for you. It's so easy to acquiesce and to fall into that. And I believe that people that do that men that do that, it's a way to gain power.
It's a setup.
Yeah, exactly, a setup.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes. So the idea is men who, he sounds like he was a real con man. He might even have been a sociopath, I don't know, but he sounds like he could have been. But the idea is to somehow isolate the person.
Exactly.
He actually took me to Florida, away from my friends and family.
Exactly.
Yes, he moved me out of state. And
see, someone that's healthy, that is not insecure in loving you, wants you to have your life and your friends around you. As soon as they start to take that away from you, that's a way to gain power and manipulate and control your life. And all you know is them. You know, it's very easy for us to fall into that pattern. It's amazing how a habit forms so quickly of dependence, just so quickly. So, you know, you have to, I would say, don't be angry at yourself. You have to forgive yourself. And that's something I want our audience to hear, too, is that as a woman, you need to let go and you need to forgive yourself. This is very difficult. It's an aphrodisiac, if you will. It's a drug. I want to get the point across, Dr. Duffy, of how this becomes an addiction. Like any addiction, alcohol, food, sex, codependency. It's a true addiction, and we lose sight of who we are, our own purpose, and everything becomes about fulfilling and maintaining that addiction at all costs, even at the cost of your life, right?
Absolutely.
At all costs.
Can I just say something about the blame? Forgiving him was easy. Forgiving myself for being so stupid for so long was the really hard part. And I wasn't able to do that until after I almost lost my life. And then I realized that it was time to leave it all behind me and move on. Because when you spend a few days on life support, all you have is yourself to think about. And only then did it really sink in that this blame that I was putting on myself had to stop. And I've done more healing in the last 6 months than I did in the 2 years previous.
How are you healing? What are you doing?
Well, it's a lot of physical activity, a lot of rehabilitation from the surgery. I've really reconnected with all my old friends that I lost through him. My family, my friends. I spend a lot of time with my 2 adult daughters, with my grandchildren. I'm living again. I had really turned it all off. You know, I'm
So
living
what I
again.
want you to know, Carol, is that not only are children dependent, adults have normal, natural dependency needs. And you may have denied your dependency needs for a very long time. You were so independent, you were a single mom, you did all that. And then he came along and somehow that codependency kicked in. It's kind of like, you know, someday my prince will come. And he came. And it looked like he was going to rescue you, save you from life, from all the trials and tribulations of life. And that's a very tempting thing.
It certainly was.
You mentioned in the open that there were signs there even before you got married. You know, I call it rose-colored hearing because we don't really listen. When we have our mindset that we want to be married and we want to be in a relationship at all costs, tell me what signs there were and why you think you decided to not pay attention.
There were times when he was the kind of person, he would disappear for hours at a time, and sometimes a day or two at a time, where you couldn't reach him or find him. Telephone conversations that I would overhear You know, and again, I would hear him. He was definitely a seducer of all women when he spoke to them. That was just the kind of man he was. And I would overhear the phone conversations and was always told, "You didn't hear it. What are you talking about? You could not possibly have heard that right." Thinking back now, you know, I want to like hit myself in the side of the head and go like, "What were you thinking?" But
what you were thinking was magical thinking.
Right. It was all make-believe.
That's a good term, rose-colored hearing.
Yes.
Yeah.
You were hearing what you wanted to hear. And what your heart's desire was to hear, that this was a man, the alpha dog, alpha man who would love you and be loyal to you, and you would be his one and only. And anything that did not match that perception, you ignored because you wanted it so much.
So you had anxiety probably on your wedding day, getting married, right? You were thinking, you were anxious?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
How did I know that? You know
Oh,
how
yeah.
I knew that? Because I did too. I did too. You're
Yeah.
looking at someone
yeah.
walking down the aisle thinking, I can always get divorced. Because I had anxiety about that too. And it was the first time in my life I knew what a panic attack was when I got married. Here's someone, I do television shows, hello. And I speak to audiences, and I could fly and I could travel, and all of a sudden I couldn't leave the house being married. And it was all what I believe, my panic attacks now are a blessing. That was God speaking to my body, because my mind keeps saying, I'm going to be okay in this marriage, I'm going to make it work, I'm going to change Marla so I could be this man's wife. But you see, my body said, no, you're not.
The body never lies.
You're not doing
Never
that.
lies.
You're having anxiety
Yes.
attacks. You need to take a look at why. And you know, then it turned into other physical health problems as well. But the anxiety, that's the first sign that something is not right.
Not
at
right.
all.
Absolutely.
Not right at all.
Well, you're both talking about deep-seated fears, and I myself had panic attacks and agoraphobia when I was 20 years old. And I had a teenage marriage, which I was able to get out of when I was 21 through the help of therapy. And fear was my middle name. I was phobic. Phobia is simply fear.
Yes.
I was so afraid, but I had lost touch with my own power, and I didn't have a strong sense of self. And I had to learn that I had rich inner resources.
So you know, Dr. Duffy, not just professionally, but personally, you've lived
Absolutely.
as a woman in a bad relationship, lost yourself. See, I think anxiety attacks they say it's about a loss, but I think it's a loss of self. I think you and I, and you too, we lost ourselves.
Yes.
Lost ourselves, and it manifests when I opened up and I said our body does not lie. It doesn't lie. It manifests in all. I think cancer is a manifestation of us being miserable and unhappy and untrue to ourselves, you know. And people, I think that so many people, especially women, the way we're raised to be submissive and the dream, the prince in shiny armor, which usually that armor is very rusty. And then we become very rusty. And we lose our dreams and our goals, and illness sets in. And then, instead of paying attention to all the problems, we have to then take care of ourselves, and the illness becomes the focus of our life, when really it's the manifestation of the wrong choices.
And the fear is a toxic fear, and we need to distinguish between toxic fear and healthy fear.
Right.
Make
Good
friends,
point.
make
That's a
friends
good
with
point.
our fears.
That's a good point.
Because fear is a very important emotion that lets us know we need to be very, very cautious. But when it becomes that extreme, it's toxic fear.
What is toxic fear exactly? I
Well,
like that.
toxic fear is about all the phobias. It's free-floating anxiety. It's a sense that I don't know what I'm afraid of, but I just know that I'm afraid. And that has to do with